This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. 2 blockbuster games at the top of the Barclays WSL table, and I think it's fair to say the title race is well and truly underway. Manchester City beat Arsenal while Chelsea's winning start is ended by Manchester United, and Spurs, who'd have thunk it, are third. Life not looking quite so rosy at the bottom of the table with Liverpool and West Ham still pointless. We'll take a look at the weekend's action, and as the UEFA Women's Champions League returns, we look ahead to what we can expect from the competition this season. All of that, plus we'll take your questions, and that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. What a panel we have today. Suzy Wrack, welcome back. How are you?
Good. Happy-ish. I mean, the men's team helped. The women's didn't do so great, did they?
No. We'll discuss that in a sec, don't you worry. One of the first things that we're going to ask you about.
The men's team, yeah, let's stick to the men's team, yeah, great.
This is Women's Football Weekly. Head over to Max and Barry if you'd like to talk about Arsenal men at top of the Premier League. Freddie, Cardy, how are you?
Yeah, same boat as Suzy. To be fair, even my five-a-side team lost last night. So, mixed footballing results in the last few days.
Marva, producer Soph did say just as you came on, if we were going to wait for a win for Everton, we'd be waiting for ages to get you on. A draw, though, that's okay. How are you?
A draw is okay. And like the other two, also the Everton men result helped as well. So maybe we should stick to men's football this week.
No, let's not, because Luton Town are not helping me out at all. So let's not, please. Right, Manchester City Arsenal always delivers, doesn't it? We were excited about it and we weren't disappointed. Another thriller. 3-2 it finished in the end to Andrée Jeglertz's side. It was an 88th minute winner as well. Dramatic fashion, Imam Bene. I mean, look, we talked about how high the stakes were coming into this one. Suzy, last week we posed a question that was a little bit naughty along the lines of, are Arsenal out of the title race if they lose this game? But I mean, it's that tight this season that, dropping points against your rivals can do that. Do you think that is the case? And what did you make of the game?
I mean, you have to play like it's not, but I mean, given Chelsea dropped 6 points all of last season and Arsenal have dropped 7 in 3 games, it's not a great look, is it? But also the fact that Chelsea haven't actually been playing that well so far this season and are still winning, right? Like that, it's just what they do. And I think I said it to someone in the press box the other day, last weekend or the weekend before, who was bemoaning Chelsea playing really, really badly. And I was like, I actually find this Chelsea more frustrating than a Chelsea that, from a fan point of view, that sweeps everything aside and is winning by huge margins and stuff. Because why can't my team do that? That's it's that winning regardless thing, and it's hugely admirable. I'm so impressed with it, and I've asked Sonia previously, I've asked Emma Hayes previously. I don't know how you build that mentality that means that regardless of how you're playing, you're still winning, or whether it's personnel, or whether it's a bit of everything. But the fact that Chelsea do that so consistently is incredible. So in that sense, I think, Arsenal are out of the title race, but they can't play like that. They've got to play as if they're going to be in it. To steal from the men's, when Arsenal men lost to Liverpool, it was over, right? Everyone, obviously it's different. Premier League is a much bigger league. There's much more games. Points are dropped far more regularly, potentially, than in WSL, given how short it is. But, a couple of weeks later and things have changed. So, things can change. It is possible, and they've got to play like it's going to be possible. But, yeah, it's not great. And just need to say that I've been bigging up Imam Bene from the first game I saw her in at the Euros and said, this kid's a superstar. And, yeah, annoyingly, I was accurate.
But that never happens on this pod. You should know that.
I know, right? My predictions aren't good. What's going on?
Well, and also it's a prediction for another team, so you've got to try and switch that somehow. Loads of question marks over Arsenal this season, it feels, Freddie. The goals have dried up as well. A bit of a criticism for Renée Slegers for not rotating in some positions. Where are these problems stemming from, do you think?
I think there's definitely questions over Renée Slegers last season where we thought, the rotation question is going to be our biggest challenge. This is the biggest squad she's worked with. This is the most players of this level that she's worked with. And, she was an interim manager for so long where you could forgive her just playing her best team every week, just trying to steer Arsenal through and get results on the board. And now she's very much got a different challenge. But I put a piece up about sort of the lack of rotation, and a lot of the comments were people saying, no, actually, there's too much. And there's really a mix in different areas of the pitch, and the number 10 role's not been consistent at all. Wingers have sort of played well, but then been chopped and changed, which I think never helps. Alessia Russo starts a lot of games up front, finishes them in the 10, and then Stina Blackstenius doesn't often justify that. I really thought she'd start against Man City simply because she always does, and she always scores against them, and this felt like one of her games. But, for Renée, you then make that decision, you throw her on, and she misses a golden opportunity. So from there, that's out of your hands a little bit as the manager. But I'm just surprised at some of the areas in which she has rotated and some of them in which she's really kept it the same. And it's hard when you've got Mariona Caldente and Kim Little as your midfield duo, because it's really difficult to turn around to one of them and say we're going to try a younger midfielder like Kyra Cooney-Cross, like Victoria Pelova. But the issue is when you do it, when you don't do it for 4 games, the longer you leave them out, when they come back in, they can then come in cold. And I think we really saw that with Lotte Wubben-Moy. Fair enough, give Katie Reid this run of games, but there's now this risk of every time they do make a change, if they bring a Kyra in, if they bring Pelova in, she didn't look quite ready in that first half. And I think that's the issue now for Arsenal, is every time that, if they do make these selection gambles now, they're even bigger gambles.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We'll talk about Chloe Kelly being on the substitutes bench and then coming on and doing what Chloe Kelly does in a second. But bearing in mind, we haven't even mentioned the team that actually won the game yet, as is the importance of the title race and dropping points within it, Marva. But my goodness me, Manchester City's attacking dynamism was on full flow, wasn't it? Full display this weekend. And Andrée Jeglertz, full of praise for his side's belief throughout the game. This is what he had to say. I can be in front of the team and say I believe we can win the league and we can beat all the teams, but if we don't do it, it can then become empty words. For the group to have that feeling that we can challenge and we can beat them, it is really important. And that's a really good point, isn't it? Because they just kept pushing Arsenal. What does it tell you about this team? Are they title contenders?
I think they are, and I think a lot of us said, the fact that they're not in Europe will definitely help their chances this season. I think he's actually been quite humble there to say it's kind of about their mentality on the pitch, because I think his tactics and his system are largely, well, in a positive way, at fault for how good they were in this game. When you look at what their fullbacks are doing now, and you've seen it over the last few games, but I think in this game particularly, really showed against, top quality opposition as well. The role that Kasparai plays, the role that Wahabi plays, I just think it was such direct but exciting football. And it's not that they're only, playing direct balls over the top or anything like that. Like they play it around the back, but it's with purpose. It's to make space for that fullback to get forward. And then once that fullback is in space, driving forward, linking up. And that's what we saw with that first goal. Yes, we can ask questions of the Arsenal defence, but I think how City played as a whole, it's just starting to click in a way that I think last season for them, they had the personnel, but there were issues in midfield, there were issues in connecting with the wingers and the fullbacks, whereas this team are really, really exciting. You look at Fagino and what she's bringing to the game. You look at the fact that she can push so wide, but then when she slightly comes in, you've got Kasparai running rings around her on the side, can play into her, and then Bunny Shaw just doing what Bunny Shaw does. I think there are very few number 9s or even just strikers and attackers in the world that not only can put in that performance in terms of running forward with the ball, in terms of scoring, but that assist, well, sort of assist at the end, because also it got kind of slightly stuck between defenders' legs, but that assist to flick it over Catley's head and then calmly play it through, I can't think of many other strikers in the world that can do that. I just think it was a complete performance from her, even though she could have had, another sort of 2 goals.
They're such fun to watch again, aren't they? And I think we missed how fun they were to watch last season. And of course, Chloe Kelly was part of their squad last season and didn't have the best of times, came to Arsenal, and it was almost inevitable, Suzy, that she was going to get on the score sheet, wasn't it? But the celebration, cupping her ear to the fans, and it's fair to say it annoyed a few people. She stoked the fire on social media later, replying to a post saying, "What's the score, Chloe?" From a Manchester City fan account with a picture of her and the Champions League trophy. What do you make of it all? Should she stay out of this kind of stuff, or is it quite fun?
It's fun. We need more of this. It's just a little bit of banter. It's just fun. I'd be happy if it was the other way around as well. This isn't it's Arsenal. Blah, blah. I love it. I love it when players and teams are a little bit feisty with each other and mess around like that. And if someone being playful on social media, there's so much horribleness on social media, and I imagine players can feel pretty inundated with abuse a lot of the time. So even jokey stuff like "What's the score, Chloe Kelly," etc. Treat it in what you hope the spirit of that is meant to be, which is playful, and be playful back. Why not? I love it all. I want more of it. I want to see Jess Park knee sliding, giving the finger to Man City fans. Maybe that's a bit extreme. And Grace Clinton mooning Marc Skinner. Let's go full hog. I'm here for chaos, playful chaos.
I am going to call you Keith Flint. You are now going to have, so producer Silas, from now on, we are going to have intro music for every guest, and Suzy's is going to be Firestarter by The Prodigy.
I'm here for it.
The game certainly lit up between Manchester United and Chelsea. I was really excited to see how this game went, both goals coming in the first half. It was a fascinating battle because Manchester United, it feels, are kind of coming into their own in terms of title contenders now. And Marc Skinner was really disappointed that his side only came away with a point in the end. How impressed were you with the way that United approached the game?
Yeah, very. I almost worry with United that the Champions League might be an issue for them this season. It's actually one of them campaigns where if they didn't have European football, I think they could have a decent crack at the title. I think there's a lot to like about sort of the football they're playing this season. The fact that, Sonia was very much saying actually that was a fair result, and that's massive credit to Manchester United, and that they've had Chelsea and Arsenal both go there and probably leave feeling frustrated, but actually holding their hands up and going, this is a good United team. There's a clear identity there. They're hard to break down. I think you look at the goalkeeper and the difference she's made, Fallon Tullis-Joyce. I think she's just taken them to a bit of a new level. And you mentioned Jess Park. I think that deal has worked out really, really well for them. I think sort of the counter-attacking football they try to play, her and Ella Toone sort of have partnered really well. And they do have options just to an extent. And that's where I worry for them. I think they're a side that I'm not surprised to see them start the season well, but how they then balance sort of European football, WSL football, the other domestic competitions, I just fear that could be where they're undone.
Definitely. I think last season what Man United struggled with was who they were playing in what position. And I think that Clinton-Toone kind of debate, not that either of them were bad, but they were really struggling to fit both of them into that team. Whereas I think what Jess Park brings, and this isn't an offence to Clinton at all, she's a brilliant player, in her own right. But I think what Park brings to this team is that she can play more as an out-and-out winger. We saw it when she played on loan at Everton. She can play in the front three, and that's kind of more comfortable for her in a way that she's happy to go fully out wide. She's happy to stay in that position. And it felt like Clinton and Toone were kind of making quite similar runs to each other. Whereas I think with Park and Toone, what you're seeing is Park goes out wide, but then when she does come in, it's a nice balance in that Toone then knows where to go. And there's this switching of positions between all of them, between Riviere. It was a handful for the defenders, and it was such an exciting game to watch. There were parts of it that felt like a basketball game. It was just so, one into the other. But yeah, Man United's attacking, just not only their confidence, but I just think that their movement was something that I haven't seen from them before, especially against teams like Chelsea, other than obviously that FA Cup semi-final. But generally, they've looked like a decent team, and then when they've come up against a team like Chelsea, it's almost like their heads drop a bit. They feel like they can't actually win the game. They try and play too defensively. and then they ultimately get done for it. Whereas this is the first time I've seen them really go up against the top opposition in the league and go, we can match you. And when we get the ball, we're not going to play it safe. We're going to keep going. And there were chances for Chelsea to win at the end, but there were also chances for Man United to win it at the end. And I think both teams actually put in a really, really good performance. I don't think you can even sort of look at criticisms for either of them. I just think it was a really exciting and great game for both teams. But I think it's a great sign that Man United are going away from that game saying, actually, we're disappointed we didn't win that, because they're more than well in their rights to think that.
I know exactly what you mean in terms of not, but we have to critique in a way. So we've got to find some negatives somewhere. And I suppose from a Chelsea fan point of view, the negative is that it's the first time this season that they've dropped points. That, for me, as a neutral observer, makes everything way more exciting, because I don't want another steamrollering Chelsea season, because I'm afraid it just gets a little bit boring. So what are the struggles that Sonia Bompastor has had, Suzy? She has tinkered quite a lot, which you would, look at their squad. She has to tinker quite a lot to keep everybody happy, but she tinkered her tactics as well. Why didn't they come out of this game with 3 points?
Good question, because we know they can be brilliant. I really like that she's stuck with Aggie Beever-Jones up top. I said it at the start of the season. I wrote a piece on it. If she gets a chance, if she's given a chance to start ahead of some of those players, she'll do really well. She'll deliver for them, and she deserves to be given that shot. So that's really great. But something isn't quite working for them, and I can't pinpoint what it is. Maybe it's the midfield, but there's just a real lack of fluidity to their play at the moment. I don't know if they've managed to find a way to get the best out of Kira Walsh. I think that's a little bit of an issue. It was the issue all last season. I think it's still an issue now. I do think they maybe need a little more in midfield in January to kind of help find that fluidity through the middle, because I don't think they've quite got that at the moment.
Interesting. So Chelsea, top of the table on 13 points. Manchester City, a point behind them, just that first defeat to Arsenal on the first game of the season. Tottenham are in third. We're going to talk about them in a second. Manchester United fourth. By the way, Spurs level on points with Man City, 12. Man United, 11 points. Arsenal in fifth on 8 points. They haven't won since the second game of the season, 2 draws and a defeat in their last 3 games. So question marks to ask, and they haven't even started the Champions League yet. So fascinating, isn't it? But the problem that we've seen season after season is that the challengers in the WSL get close to Chelsea, but never quite close enough. Is this the year this is going to change?
Well, from an Arsenal perspective, I'm not quite sure. And Suzy made a good point in the fact that if Chelsea realise they want to strengthen their midfield in January, they just go out and do it. And that's sort of, so they're so accustomed to doing that. And I think that's almost the difference here, is that Arsenal, I think, come January, could easily be looking at certain positions and thinking we need to get someone in. But I think they need to have a little look at their recruitment at some point in terms of, have we capitalised well enough on winning the Champions League? And why is there such a history of Arsenal after sort of this stage in the season or come Christmas of Arsenal having to chase Chelsea? Because that's just not sustainable as a team trying to win the WSL when you're falling behind season after season. And I think that's why we've seen the fans' frustration. I think, Renée Slegers has credit in the bank. The Lisbon memories were fun, but everybody wants to see Arsenal, from the fan perspective, to win the WSL, and they know this club should be capable of it. So I like the look of Manchester City, certainly, but I think Chelsea will just be in a position where they'll probably get to January and then around top of the table and just be able to go on and push from there. And for Arsenal, I think it's next month they host Chelsea. I mean, if they lose that, then that could well just be it. I think they're going to have to beat Chelsea home and away to have any chance. What United can sustain, what Tottenham can sustain, maybe, we'll have to see. But it's quite hard to look past Chelsea, even though they're not blowing teams away, and that'll be the frustrating thing for these other sides.
We shall see. That's it for part 1. In part 2, we'll continue to look back at the weekend's action, and we'll look ahead to the Champions League. Welcome back to part 2 of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. So Tottenham Hotspur moved up to 3rd in the table, securing a second win on the bounce against Brighton. Katinka Tandberg's first half goal proving the winner at Brisbane Road in the end. Before we talk about the game, though, in a pre-match statement, captain Bethany England said Spurs wouldn't be taking the knee before the match because it no longer feels meaningful in the wake of racist abuse received by Jess Naz on social media. Head coach Martin Ho wore a T-shirt reading Spurs against racism. This is what Bethany said. We're still seeing prejudice and racism, and there's so much more everyone should be doing. This isn't a tick box. This is people's lives, people's feelings, and it needs to change. Suzy, we had this debate during the Euros when the Lionesses chose not to take the knee in support of Jess Carter. How else can the message get through?
I think it's fine to not do it if you're doing something else. I feel like that was the problem at the Euros, is that you couldn't tell that anything was being done. So it was like it went from a statement being made on something to no statement being made on something. And yes, they spoke about it beforehand, but for someone who just switched on the game and isn't like in tune with like sort of the build up and what players are speaking out on, you would not have noticed that there was any protest or support for their black players or support for Jess Carter in that horrific time for her. It wasn't visible at all for kids watching it, for newer people watching it, for people who, don't particularly care. Like, would they even notice the knee being taken anymore? It's been done so much. So, I understand shifting it up, but you've got to do something else. So it's good that they wore shirts in the warm-up and things like that, but that's not at the match itself. And I kind of feel like there still needs to be something there. Not doing anything feels a bit of a step back overall, even though the intentions are good.
What did you make of it, Marva?
I think for me, it's that I agree with Suzy in the sense of, how can we expect football to solve a problem in a society where, we see rise of racism and violent racism on the streets in a way that we haven't seen in a little while. But I think when you look at the power that football has, especially in terms of money, and not just the football teams themselves, but all the brands around it, this is a, multi-billion-pound industry. And I just think actually if a lot of these clubs and brands said to these social media platforms, we're going to come off these platforms until you sort something about this, until you do some concrete action, where would that leave us? And I just feel like bigger statements like that in terms of actions, and that's not to say that, Bethany England is responsible for that or that Spurs women themselves are responsible for that at all. But I'm looking bigger and I'm looking at the wider football structures and the brands involved. And I do think that if they were to make more of a statement like that to social media platforms where a lot of this racism is happening, I think that would make a much bigger stand than just saying we need to do something about it. Of course we need to do something about it, so let's do something about it.
Yeah, very good point. Jess Naz got specific praise, Freddie, from her manager after the game, saying it was one of her best performances for the club, player of the match performance, and really impressive actually after a difficult couple of weeks for her facing that racist abuse on social media. She was brilliant.
Yeah, I was sort of flicking between the games because none really stood out, unfortunately, on that Sunday afternoon. And I was really pleased, when they came across to the Spurs game and it was that brilliant ball in from Jess Naz, because she can blow hot and cold. I feel like she's been in and around the England squad and never really been someone in contention to start when you look at the sort of the quality of the wingers and the forwards England have there. But she's a key player, and Katinka Tandberg has just taken them to a bit of a new level as well. I think she's taken a lot of pressure off Bethany England, allowing her to drop a little bit deeper. Martha Thomas hasn't really scored the goals they'd have wanted over the last couple of years, and to have this number 9 in, I think is really helping them sort of unlock a bit of potential now. And I feared for them after that defeat to Man City because defensively they really didn't look great, but to see them sort of put that to one side and win the games that they need to be winning has been really impressive.
Yeah, I think Chris Poweros, friend of the pod, is going to be incredibly excited. We're used to talking to her about relegation battles, aren't we? I tell you what, though, Brighton's Dario Vidovic cut quite a frustrated figure on the touchline after the game. He was particularly unhappy, Suzy, with the referee's performance. This is what he had to say. I love it when a manager starts it with, "I don't want to get in trouble, but..." I think there are 2 clear penalties, first half and 100% one in the second half with Kiko Seiki. She clearly gets taken out from my view. Contact is there, clear contact. What did you make of both the decisions and, can you understand his annoyance?
I actually think particularly the first one, that when Toga sort of froze herself, is on the floor and froze herself in front of the legs of whichever attacker it was, I've forgotten, and basically completely bundles her over. It doesn't get much more obvious than that. I thought that was a really, really poor decision. The second one, yeah, given, but I think that first one for me was the big one, right? That is what puts the game in a completely different position. Poor decision making from the referee.
Let's talk Everton, Marva. I know you've been itching to. Got your Toffees hoodie on this morning. It's been noted. Actually, I have to say, leading into this game, Leicester and Everton is a fixture that historically has actually delivered the least amount of goals. So I wasn't particularly excited by this. 2 goals is pretty good. That's fine. King Power Stadium. Mouchon's late strike, seeing Leicester salvage a point after Ornella Vignola fired Everton ahead. Nearly the win. But ultimately, Marva, did you do enough to deserve 3 points, or was it a fair result between these 2 teams?
I mean, it was a fair result in the sense that they equalised and they took their chance. So we can't complain in that sense. And I'm very frustrated for us as a team because I think it was actually the best performance we've put in all season. I think we showed a lot of really good signs throughout that game. We dominated for the majority of the game. I think once it hit the sort of 60-minute mark, Leicester started to come into it a bit more. And then also once they got their goal, then it was looking like, oh, we could lose this now, although we still had chances to win it ourselves. So it was a really frustrating game, actually, because I think, not to be too pessimistic already about the season, but we know how short a WSL season is. And if you only get 1 point against Leicester, London City, Brighton and Spurs combined, what are you kind of hoping for the season? And I think that's something that the club really need to look at. And I think it will be a bit of pressure on Brian Sorensen because he has got a lot of the players that he's wanted. I will say, however, that we were without Gago and Brosnan, and I think Brosnan saved that goal. Actually, I think Ramsey usually saves that goal. She played well, but that goal should have been saved. And I think Gago scores a lot of those chances we had in the first half and beginning of the second half. So, yeah, there were signs. I thought Katie Robinson was actually really, really good for us. Just that clinical edge, she kind of lacked that confidence. So hopefully playing her a little bit more, bringing on Payne a little bit earlier for that kind of direct football, there's some hope there in terms of moving forward. But it's kind of, I don't want to say too late because you never know, but it does feel like, well, what are we then hoping to achieve now? Because we've played a good majority of the sort of mid to lower table teams. We haven't even played the top 4 yet. So, yeah, good thing that I was on this week because I'm not sure you would have seen me on in the next few weeks if you were waiting for an Everton win.
I know, well, we did mention you on the first pod that you'd be gutted that that you weren't on for that one. That's so typical. Leicester is such an interesting side, Freddie. I don't think I've ever worked them out since they've been in the WSL. I'm not 100% sure, what kind of team they are, but what I can say is they've got this kind of never say die attitude that they've developed, and they were always in this game as well. And Noémie Mouchon's first goal since coming back from that ACL injury that she suffered last October, so a year ago, and of course scoring within a minute of coming onto the field, you could tell she was absolutely desperate to get her boots back on. That was quite a special moment for her.
Yeah, and a really nicely taken goal, actually, sort of the strength within the run, because she picked it up quite far out from goal as well. And in a Leicester side that struggles to score goals, doesn't have loads of options up front. I know sort of Jutta Rantanen was really missed for large parts of last season, and they'll be really pleased to see that, to sort of have a player who can come on. But yeah, I'd like to sort of know what, Amandine Mikel's made of this, because it doesn't really feel like they've had a start to the season that's justified parting company with her. She only had one season with fairly limited investment, and I just struggle to see sort of where they feel that decision's paid dividends so far. It doesn't quite feel like that vision's there, and I think unfortunately Leicester are sort of caught in the spot of having a men's side that are bouncing between the Premier League and the Championship, and almost unfortunately that can come into the lack of investment. I know on the men's side they've been pretty unhappy with a lot of the sort of the poor transfer windows as well, and it just doesn't quite feel like that vision is there. And I'm sure we'll come on to Liverpool, but looking at them, West Ham, sort of Leicester, I know they've got 4 points, whereas Liverpool and West Ham are yet to get anything, but almost this season feels like a very good advert for having some kind of relegation, because I feel like if we didn't have that this season, there would be some drab games, I think, because there's a few teams who are just really lacking that creativity.
Oh, one of them is West Ham, I'm afraid. You were in Dagenham, Suzy, for their 2-0 defeat to Aston Villa. How frustrated will they be that they didn't come away with anything, or were Villa just too good for them? They are winless currently, along with Liverpool. When do we start, in fact, pointless, not just winless, pointless. When do we start to worry for Renée Slegers and West Ham?
Stats and the table doesn't lie, but I don't actually think they're playing that badly. Genuinely think they're actually playing really well. I thought really well, maybe an exaggeration, but across 90 minutes they're not, but for periods of games they are playing well. The second half against Chelsea, despite going in a 15-minute spell 3 goals down and you thinking it's going to be utter collapse, first half against Arsenal, second half against Brighton, first half against Villa, they were good. There's a real lack of clinical edge, and part of that responsibility has to go on the players, because there's only so much you can do to prepare a team for a match, and they're not set up particularly badly. They're playing some nice football. If Vivian Asay's header is connected with slightly better and is on target, it's a different game. 2 minutes later, Kirsty Hansen scores that absolutely fantastic goal. 7 minutes after that, Lynn Wilms scores the second. So and it's frustrating to watch them because they deserve to be doing better than they are based on the way they're playing. I said this to Skinner afterwards, the fact that you score 5 against Charlton, which obviously a WSL 2 side, 5 different goal scorers, shows that they can score. So what is the difference between that game and these WSL games? And is it a case of them just struggling with that decision making in the final third and just hesitating a little bit too much? And she said she definitely thinks there is a hesitancy there. Renée Slegers is a good manager. I think she's a very good manager, and I think that changing her isn't necessarily the answer. They've got bigger fish to fry. They need players. They need the club to start kind of stepping up and taking it a bit more seriously. I think that is the bigger issue. It's not like the men's game. They're not getting all of this money, and they've not got sort of a little bit of a free rein to kind of build the squad they want in the way they want and stuff. Give them a chance. That was a proper long rant, but
it was.
Yeah.
She is a fire starter. West Ham have got Brighton and Hove Albion in the Women's League Cup next, and then London City Lionesses in the league at the weekend. And actually, when you talk about turning things around, a little bit of confidence, etc., first win for Natalia Arroyo and Aston Villa this season. They've had a really difficult start in terms of opposition, but maybe this is going to help them get up and running. Marva?
Yeah, definitely. And I think while I agree that actually West Ham got the better of them, especially in the first 25 minutes of that game, got in behind quite a lot, especially on the left-hand side. But then what they did do was sort of give it right back in terms of their fullback. So I thought Grant was brilliant, and Denton, I think it was at left back for West Ham, really struggled with her. And what you start to see is, even though West Ham getting the better of them for good parts of the game, their decisiveness when it got into the box, I think even the chances that they missed in the first half, Villa, the XG on them, I would love to see it. Must have been sort of very close to 1, because the chances that they were creating when they did get the ball were brilliant. And then 2, just actually world-class goals. That first one from Hansen, I think that's up there with goal of the season. And I kind of felt for West Ham, because it's what can you actually do with that? There's nothing you can do with that. When you score 2 goals of that quality, the game's gone. But I think that's indicative of what Aston Villa do bring to these games, is that they do have this bit of quality that they can really shine through and get those points. And a lot of these games between sort of mid-table sides are won on that, and they're won on these sort of really small, just quality, decisive moments. And Aston Villa's squad, while when you look at the bench, they maybe aren't competing in the way that some of the teams above them are, but I think in terms of their starting 11 and some of the quality they've got to actually score goals, I think they can be excited by that and take a lot of confidence from that game.
Yeah, without a doubt. And London City Lionesses can take some confidence from this as well. Their second win of the season. Controversial circumstances, mind you. An 89th minute penalty from Elena Linari beating Liverpool by a 1-0. The penalty came when Nikita Paris broke into the box, connected with the Liverpool keeper Rafaela Borgraf. Many think it maybe should have been a foul and a yellow card the other way. What did you make of the decision, Freddie?
Yeah, it was one of them where I think both the Sky commentators were sort of adamant that it was, and almost watching you just sort of blindly nod along a little bit, and then you watch it again and think, hang on a minute, I think this could have easily gone the other way, but I thought London City deserved to win one way or another. They hit the post. Izzy Goodwin was good again up front, and they just have players to come on and bring, off the bench. I think even as much as Alana Kennedy coming on to help see it out, I think there's, what a player for them to have coming off the bench and sort of getting them over the line. And they were the only team who really created anything. So I think Liverpool will be hard done by there, but I think when you go to London City and only try and really play for a goalless draw, which I think unfortunately they set up quite negatively, didn't really create a lot. I just think they invited too much pressure on them, particularly in the second half, and just didn't deserve anything out of the game. But I think they'll have a right to feel hard done by.
That's the WSL wrapped up. We're not going to preview games specifically in the Champions League, but we are going to look ahead to the league phase of the UEFA Champions League, which kicks off this week. It's the first edition in the new format that mirrors the men's game. 18 teams involved, so each team plays 6 matches against 6 different opponents. It does make it more exciting, by the way, and puts up some really interesting matchups early on. This is how the qualification part of it works. So if you finish in the top 4, you automatically qualify for the quarterfinals, and then the next 8 sides go into the playoffs. So 6 sides will be kicked out of the league phase if they don't perform. Chelsea are heading to the Netherlands, kicking off their challenge against FC Twente on Wednesday. I mean, obviously, Marva, they go into it as favourites. What can Chelsea do in the Champions League this season?
Oh, I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? I do think part of why they maybe haven't been playing as well in the league is that we're seeing Sonia kind of experiment with creating a team that then can play against the Barcelonas in the later stages of the competition. So I am excited to see sort of, obviously this game against Twente, no disrespect to them, but obviously Chelsea are the favourites in that game. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of rotation that she does bring to the squads. But I'm excited to see what they do in the Champions League in these stages, particularly when you're not playing against one team twice, you're playing against lots of different teams. So we're going to have to see how they adapt. And I think that is where we're going to see, hopefully from a Chelsea point of view, them really improve in that way and start to see why she's playing, a back 5 against Villa and Leicester and the problems that Chelsea fans are having, because I do think it's probably to set up for the late stages of this very competition.
Arsenal have got a tough game to kick off their campaign. Tuesday night, 8-time champions Lyon. I mean, obviously they beat them in that infamous semi-final last season. But what are you expecting, Freddie? Can they kick off their defensive campaign with a win, and can they retain the trophy?
I remember landing in Lyon for the second leg last season, and I was speaking to Arsenal fans, and nobody was nervous because they just thought this is a free hit. If we lose, it's been a good run, and if we win, it's been amazing. And I'm almost getting those sort of vibes with tonight's game, in that there's really, particularly looking at how well Lyon have done in the transfer window over the summer, I think they are probably expected to come out on top due to the start of the season they've had, and then Arsenal have had in turn. Lyon thrash PSG. They will be, of course, amongst the favourites. Arsenal, I think playing these home games at Meadow Park is going to be interesting. It sort of worked with that Bayern Munich game. They got moved there last season in the pouring rain, and they made it a bit of a fortress, but tickets actually haven't sold out, which when fans want the club to be playing these games at the Emirates, I sort of sympathise with the club, because they can then turn around and say, well, if we can't sell out Meadow Park on a Tuesday night, then is there really that drive to play these games in the Emirates? And then I think there's another discussion about midweek, games in terms of the demographic of fans who go to watch them. But I do hope Meadow Park can sort of become a little bit of a fortress for Arsenal and really those fans being on top of the players. But it's one of those where if Arsenal lose tonight, I don't think it's really going to change anything overall. I think the pressure is all about the WSL, and overall it's quite a nice set of fixtures, to be honest, for Arsenal. Lyon and Bayern Munich, once you get those out the way nice and early. Real, of course, caused Arsenal problems, and then a bit of the unknown in sort of Benfica, Twente and Leuven. I think, they'll be aiming for the top four. They'll want to avoid those 2 extra fixtures, but I think Arsenal sort of will be okay in this Champions League.
Yeah. How will Manchester United fare, though, Suzy? They've got Vålerenga at Lee Sports Village, their first ever game in the Champions League proper. A decent start for them, but what do you think they can achieve in the competition this season?
Vålerenga is a kind start for them. After that, it gets very, very tricky. So I think it's going to be really, really tough for them to do a huge amount in this competition, particularly with it being their first time playing in all 4 competitions, reaching this stage of the Champions League, and having to maintain that momentum in the league in particular. I'm particularly worried about, kind of centre back, without Millie Turner for the foreseeable. So yeah, whilst the Vålerenga fixture is kinder, after that it gets really, really tricky in that they've got Atletico Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Wolfsburg, Lyon and Juventus. None of those are easy. Juventus may be the weak link of those when you've got, kind of 8-time champions. Lyon, as we've already said. Wolfsburg have won it twice. PSG have reached the latter stages in recent years fairly consistently. Atletico Madrid's one of the teams that did well in kind of qualifying for this tournament, and also have got experience in the Champions League as well. So I don't think they have to do incredible this season, but they could. They've got the capacity to do well. Very little pressure.
I find it really interesting because, and I'm sure, Manchester United fans will be annoyed with me for saying this, but I almost don't want them to do well to tell the owners and the hierarchy, see, you get yourself into a position like this in the UEFA Women's Champions League, but because you've not invested, you haven't done very well. Do you know what I mean? And I feel really awful saying that, because the football should be different and should be able to rise above that. But I feel that that's the only way that it would make them being humiliated on the European stage would be one of the few ways to get some attention, put into the women's team.
The club don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. But Skinner and the players do, and the fans do, right? And that's the frustrating thing. They're the big problem, as we can see across the men's side as well.
100%. Right, we've had an email from Scott. He messaged us on Women's Football Weekly at theguardian.com. Hi Faye and team, long-time listener, first-time emailer. I love that. Wanted to get your thoughts on the growing trend of WSL games being moved to 12 o'clock kickoffs. Feels like a strange decision when there's such a big push to grow the women's game, especially through grassroots and community support. A lot of girls who play at grassroots level have their own matches at the same time, so families end up having to choose between playing or supporting their team. I've got 2 daughters, one plays and I help coach her team, and the other's just getting started, and already this season we've had to make that choice 3 times. With more early kickoffs being announced for TV, it looks like that's only going to carry on. We're Leicester fans, and while the official attendance numbers might not look too bad, the stands tell a different story and they're getting emptier. Brilliant having more games on Sky, BBC and YouTube. The visibility is great, but if that comes at the expense of actual supporters being able to attend, it doesn't feel sustainable. Honestly, if things stay the same, we might not renew our season tickets next year, and I can't imagine we're the only ones in that position. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Maybe help bring a bit more attention to the issue. Absolutely, Scott. And if possible, could I get a quick shout out for my daughter's team? Of course you can. Go on, Hinckley RFC under 8s. Come on, the Galaxies. Good luck at the weekend. Brilliant email, Scott. Suzy, you were nodding along during that. It's becoming a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Hate the 12 o'clock kickoffs so much. I mean, all of those things are very valid. Kids playing on Sundays early and things like that. I think it's hard to avoid. Kids play on Saturdays as well, blah, blah, blah. Can you play a game and then get to a match is very difficult. I think that's a little bit of much of a muchness. It's the travel. The travel for those early kickoffs is just absolutely brutal. If you've got an early kickoff in Lee Sports Village, you basically have to stay up in Manchester overnight, or kind of leave at ridiculous o'clock to get there. The trains aren't reliable on Sundays. It's just a nightmare basically. I can't stand them, and Sky have paid a lot of money for those rights, and they have that slot available, and that's the slot they want to go with, and to a certain extent you have to go, well, if that's what they want, that's what they get. But is it that good for viewing figures either midday on a Sunday? Like, I'm just not convinced that's good in any circumstance, really, other than well, it fits here, you know? Like, I don't think it's, like, actually beneficial to viewing figures or to travelling fans or to kids playing football on a Sunday. So, like, yeah, I just think it is literally like where's the gap that men's teams don't play because of all these problems? Let's stick the women's in there.
I think as well, you know, the men's game is just so vast as well in terms of what's on TV. Like, all the games run at 5 to 12. At 12, it was Norwich versus Ipswich. And that wasn't just on Sky, it was on ITV as well. So you're never just going to get this exclusive window. You know, even looking from a TV perspective, you've got European men's football all day on the Sunday, and the women's games as well. I think there was NWSL on in the evening. People are going to pick and choose anyway because there's so many options. So let's focus again on, you know, getting these people in the stands. And, you know, it's just so frustrating because it feels like a missed opportunity. England have won the Euros again. We've got this massive increase in girls playing football. But if the visibility is not there, then that's a real issue.
Yeah, I always just think, don't assume that women's football is going to lose out in the viewing battle. Don't automatically assume that. They can go head to head. By the way, next Sunday, producer Sophie's just flagged, there are 4 games at 12 o'clock, one at 2:30 and one at 4:45. So they're all on the same day. It's the men's international break, you know, could be spread across. Anyway, we will keep talking about it because it is becoming a problem, a scheduling headache, if you like. Just want to end on one little piece of news to let you know about. The Confederation of African Football's announced that the 2026 edition of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations is going to expand to 16 teams. It was previously 12. The tournament will be held in Morocco from the 17th of March to the 3rd of April. It was Morocco this year as well, wasn't it? FIFA have also named London as the location for the semi-finals and finals of the inaugural Women's Champions Cup, which is going to be played between the 28th of January and the 1st of February next year. The tournament kicks off this week. And Wuhan Jiangda face Auckland United in a 2-legged tie. The winner of that is going to progress to face the winners of the 2025 CAF Women's Champions League, which is going to be confirmed on the 23rd of November. European champions Arsenal are also going to face the winner of that encounter in the semi-finals, while the CONCACAF champions Gotham FC will take on the winner of the Copa Libertadores Femenina, which is going to be decided this month. That will feel like it makes way more sense when I actually read the teams out that have won. It feels like a lot of competitions all thrown in just there. Anyway, that was much fun this morning. Freddie, lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too. Sorry, I always seem to be ill on these. It's a coincidence,
ill?
Nothing more. Yeah,
I didn't even notice you were ill. Couldn't tell that.
Good to hear.
Everybody is ill at the moment. It's October. It's what happens. Marva, fingers crossed. Next time you're on, it's an Everton win.
Yeah, see you next season then.
Yeah. Please come back before that. Suzy Wrack, lovely to see you as always. Have a good week.
Back at you. I really want us to like the Man United fan growing his hair, have Marva on every single week until an Everton win.
Yes.
And then see how many episodes it is. I feel like that would be really, really funny.
That would be absolutely amazing. And I will now intro you as Firestarter from now on as well. Keep having your say. Send in your questions via X. In fact, Firestarter and Fellaini. How about we do that? There you go. I've got 2 nicknames. Freddie, I'll think of one with you, but you can maybe just say Freddie because then that's 3 Fs. Freddie, Firestarter, Fellaini. Right, keep having your say. And Faye! Oh my God, I forgot my own name. How ridiculous. Keep having your say. Send in your questions via X. Email us at womensfootballweekly@theguardian.com. And as ever, a reminder to sign up to our bi-weekly Women's Football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts Sign Up. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is produced by Sophie Downey and Silas Gray. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Danielle Stevens.
This is The Guardian.